video today about what's it like to inherit assets. I previously did one on inheriting IRA assets. What are the tax consequences involved? When do I have to take the money out? Things like that. So I wanted to produce a video today on what's it like to inherit a taxable account. Okay, it's very different. So it could be a brokerage account from, say, a parent or another loved one, leaves behind a taxable brokerage account to me. It could be mutual funds, could be, stocks, could be really anything. So it's very different than if I inherit an IRA. There's really no consequence to me if I were to inherit a brokerage account. I don't owe any particular tax on that. It doesn't really matter what it's invested in. It could be a piece of real estate. It could be mutual funds, stocks, really anything like that that are not IRA assets. Okay, it could be a brokerage account, it could be a bank account, anything like that. So there's really no consequence to me. Now, the person who I inherited the money from, their estate could incur some tax. That's possible if their estate was extremely large. If for 2023, it's basically $12.9 million is exempt from any federal estate tax. So, and then as a couple, you can basically double that. So, but that's really the estates being taxed, is subject to estate tax. But me as a recipient of a taxable account, there's really no consequence to me inheriting that. So let's say I inherited like a brokerage account. I'll give you an example here. I had a kind of a sample portfolio here, and just looking at some of the, let's say it's a collection of stocks, okay? And so you can see here that if there's a certain, look at the gain loss column there. There's certain stocks that are at a loss clearly, and some are at a gain. So if the original owner had sold any of these stocks during their lifetime, let's take the Microsoft example at the very bottom. If they sold that during their lifetime, they would have been on the hook for a capital gain, a long-term capital gain. That's just the difference between what they bought it at and what they sold it at. And that would be taxable to them at capital gain rates. Okay, so it's very different. If I inherit this particular portfolio, what's going to happen is I would receive what's called a stepped up cost basis. So basically what happens is, based on the person's day of death, the cost basis would step up to reflect the market value on the day of death. Okay, so basically let's pretend that we inherited this portfolio, and on the day of death, let's say I inherited that asset, and let's pretend that everything moved really quickly and I could potentially sell it the very next day. There's really no taxes involved at all. And so now realistically, from day of death till it gets transferred into my name, or divided up into multiple recipients, there could be some gains or losses that I would be on the hook for since day of death. But that's really, it's kind of like having a clean start, and those are also considered to be long-term gains. Whenever that transfers into my name. And so it's really having a clean start. You can sell them, you can rearrange them, you do whatever you want, but there's no tax for just inheriting the assets. Okay, and so that's really a nice feature about inheriting a brokerage account. I would say, in order, like a Roth IRA would probably be the best thing to inherit because it's totally tax free. If I sell it, or I can save it for at least up to 10 years if I'm a non-spousal beneficiary, and that's a tax-free pot of money. A brokerage account, well, I get the stepped up cost basis, so there's really no consequence for me inheriting it. And then I could sell stuff, and I could rearrange it as I want to. I could have it professionally managed by somebody that's going to do that for me. I can do really whatever I want, but there's really no taxes involved. If I inherit an IRA, as I talked about previous video, that's taxable as ordinary income to me, and I could spread it out over a period of time, or I can lump sum it out and pay tax on it. But a brokerage account is really a great asset to inherit. So same thing with a bank account. There's really no, those are just interest-bearing accounts, so there's really no consequence at all for me to inherit that. Say with a piece of real estate, possibly, that would be a stepped up cost basis. So if let's say that whoever inherited it from bought it a long time ago for a very small amount of money, now it's increased in value substantially. Well, that capital gain would have been incurred by the owner had they sold it during their lifetime, but I get a stepped up cost basis to basically fair market value on the day of death. And so that's a great feature. So there's really no consequence for me doing that. So typically, and let's go back to this portfolio, what would happen is the custodian, whoever holds these assets, for the, they're notified that a person has died. They're probably going to generate what's called a day of death valuation, and they're just going to give you kind of a snapshot of all the assets, what they're valued at on the day of death. And then, whoever the executor is going to make sure those assets go where they're supposed to go. Divide those up to beneficiaries. If there are no beneficiaries, it could be subject to probate, and so a court would decide. Hopefully there's a will that's going to say, hey, where the assets go, or the court, absent that, the court could just decide based on family or next of kin or whatever. So it's just important. The main message is there's really no consequence for inheriting a taxable asset. So I just want to communicate that. I'm not a tax advisor. I would strongly encourage you to talk with a CPA before you make any moves. If you first inherit assets, it's good to talk to a professional tax advisor before you do that. But I just wanted to produce a video to tell you that, hey, congratulations, if you inherited a taxable account. That's great. If you have any questions for me, my contact information is in the About section of my YouTube channel, and thanks for watching my video.